Husband's been secretly taking trips abroad to meet a woman he's been talking to for months, and I swear it didn't announce itself with lipstick or a dramatic hotel receipt tucked into a blazer. It arrived quietly, like fog slipping under a door I thought was sealed. And I'm Nisha, 31, a pharmacist who spends her days counting pills into neat amber bottles and explaining side effects in calm, measured tones. Which is funny because when the side effects started in my own life I spoke to no one and measured nothing. I just stood in the kitchen holding his passport like it was a live wire and turned it over, then over again like maybe it would tell me a dose, a frequency, a way to taper off without withdrawal. The passport was the beginning, not the first sign, but the first object that wouldn't pretend for me. It had a tiny slice on the edge of the navy cover where someone had wedged a boarding pass in a hurry, and when I opened it, a stamp winked up from Lisbon us 3 weeks ago, a neat rectangle of ink that didn't match any of the Boston client stories he'd told. A pharmacist is trained to notice patterns. A refill too early, a refill too late, a pickup on a Tuesday that used to be a Thursday. Airports leave ink for the inattentive to trip on. I ran my thumb over the ink like a rosary, and my mouth did the strangest thing. It laughed, one short bark, a sound that belonged in another woman's throat. If you're going to picture us, you might as well get the usual details. Here's Rahul, 33, a product manager at a travel tech startup that thinks the cure for boredom is always a gate number. He's good at slide decks and bad at watering the basil. He makes terrible puns and perfect omelets, wears the same gray hoodie like it's a uniform and calls me doc even though I correct him every time. Because community pharmacy is not precisely a doctorate, and anyway it's not the point. I label things for a living. I file. I make careful piles of meaning. He makes itineraries and calls them spontaneity. We were fine until we were a hypothesis I hadn't consented to. I didn't rip his drawers apart. That's a lie I'd like to tell for the drama. Instead, I put his passport back into the drawer where it sleeps, and I walked to the sink and turned the tap and watched water fill a glass like certainty. Then I did the thing I tell my patients to do when the medicine makes them jittery. I sat down. I wrote a list. Under February, Boston 2 nights. Under March, Denver 3 nights. Under June, Lisbon? The question marks looked adolescent and honest. I wrote Lisbon again beneath it with an underline because sometimes the word that scares you loses a little power when it becomes ink. You should know about the email. I found it by accident, which is what people say when they want a gentler word for curiosity. He'd left his laptop open on the dining table because the charger port is temperamental, and I went to move it so I could set down groceries, and the screen woke and there it was, an inbox not his but near him the way a shadow is near a person. It was an address I didn't recognize, not his name at our domain, but a free one built out of pieces of him, a childhood nickname and the year his favorite cricket team won a championship. Inside, one email at the top with a subject line that performed lightness, "Wheels up soon." I clicked. "I've been practicing the 3 new Portuguese words you taught me," she wrote. Azul, Saudade, Pressa. You didn't tell me Saudade would feel like a room. She had signed it with an initial C and a tiny plane emoji that wanted to be a signature and not a weapon. Below that, a thread that stretched down the screen like a spilled spool. Months of notes, the kind of intimacy that avoids nouns and loves verbs. Did you sleep? Eat something. Send me a photo of the sky from your window. The sky from his window belonged to our lease. There were pictures, but not the kind that would make a courtroom gasp. Photos of a coffee cup sweating on a tiled counter, of tram cables cutting the sky at angles, of his stupid gray hoodie folded on a chair in a room with a window that does not belong to us. One photo was of a hand holding a pastel de nata, the thumb I kiss when we're watching something dumb on TV. The thumb was his. The caption read, "Your pastry's better," and my name was not on the pastry. I stood in the doorway and tasted metal. I've told 100 men that their blood pressure is too high, and I heard my own pulse like a bus idling. I closed the laptop. I put away the tomatoes. I arranged the basil by the window where it always leans toward light. Some actions are scaffolding. You keep them even when the building underneath is on fire. How do you talk to a man you still love and also want briefly to throw into the river? I waited until Monday. A pharmacist respects good light. You check tablets by the pharmacy window, not under fluorescent hum. Monday, after my shift where I'd counseled strangers on antibiotics and earned thanks for being calm about urinary tract infections, I went home to my husband making dal the way his mother taught him, with tempering that pops like punctuation. He smiled like a man in a yogurt commercial. He kissed me with mouthwash and optimism. We ate from bowls while standing, which is bad for your digestion and good for pretending conversations are too casual for wreckage. Then I said, "How was Boston?" He looked at me the way a man looks at a dog who has just spoken. "Cold," he said. "You know Boston. And Lisbon?" I asked and placed the word between us like an egg. He didn't drop it. He went still. The stillness had weight. He didn't lie immediately, which might have been mercy or incompetence. He blinked once, twice. He put the spoon down. "Okay," he said softly, like he had been waiting to be caught and also hoping it would be a Saturday. He didn't say, "It's not what you think." He knew better. He sat, which made me grateful, to his knees. "Her name is Katerina," he said, as if adding vowels would fix the stain. "We met on a forum for travel product testers. We sent notes. Then calls. Then he swallowed. I went." "How many times?" I asked, because pharmacists count. "You'd be amazed at how often the right number is the difference between manageable and bring a chair." "Twice," he said. "Lisbon and Porto." "And you didn't tell me because?" I asked. He rubbed his forehead and gave me a handful of sentences I recognized from the counseling room dressed up in personal clothes. It was exciting, he felt seen, he didn't want to be the villain, he was going to tell me and then the timing was wrong and then it felt like telling me would make it worse. The architecture of cowardice is surprisingly consistent, the way walls go up around a room that doesn't deserve them. "Did you sleep with her?" I asked, because mystery is a mold and I wanted to bleach it. He looked at me and I watched a man who has always been a decent liar choose not to be. "Yes," he said, and his face broke in a way that would have moved me if the room hadn't been my living room. My ears went empty. I heard the building breathe. I had prepared for some version of this moment, which is what you do when you live in a body that knows how to stage interventions. I poured water. I handed it to him like a script. He didn't drink. He stared at the surface like it would reflect a moral. "I was going to end it," he said, which I hear once a week from men holding pink bottles of antibiotics after we've discussed unprotected choices. "And what?" I asked, not interested in his verb until it chose a noun. "Though it isn't a relationship," he said, and then winced at himself because relationships don't need ceremonies, they need repetition. "Whatever it is," he finished small. "I think you need to end the lying first," I said, and I surprised myself by being tired instead of dramatic. He slept on the couch that night because I said he had to move his body to a place where the damage could see itself. In the morning, I called my sister. Her name is Asha and she's a junior lawyer who wears suits like armor and shows up with snacks like love. "Come over tonight," I said. "I need a witness." "To the crime?" she asked. "To the repair or to the end?" I said. "Whichever version makes it to the room." She arrived at 7 with a box of barfy and a pad of paper and wrote dates while I spoke. She asked Rahul 3 questions: how long, why her, what next. He answered clumsily and I didn't rescue him from his own nouns. We made a plan, not a movie plan where you shred a passport and change cities, but a boring muscular plan the way married people do when their life slips into the river and they have to decide whether to wade in or build a new bridge. He drafted a message to Katerina while Asha watched. "I betrayed my wife and myself. I am ending this now. Do not contact me again." He typed in his language, plain. He pressed send. Then he blocked what can be blocked without turning into a person who stalks his own shadow. He handed me the burner laptop with the not burner email, and I put it in the hall closet where we keep the ladder and our least attractive seasonal blankets. But here's the part no one ever tells you because it isn't cinematic. Ending an affair is not an ending. It's a room with air that smells like burnt sugar. The next morning, he hovered near me in the kitchen like a child who's not sure if he's still in trouble. I buttered my toast and told him he would be in therapy by the end of the week, not because therapy makes saints, but because it makes nouns. You have to learn why you wanted to be a person with a border town, I said. And we have to learn if I still want to live on the same map. He went. He came back with phrases that made my skin itch and my hope do small, reluctant stretches. Avoidance, he said. Fantasies as regulation. Shame loop. The pharmacist in me appreciated the labels even while the woman wanted actions I could photograph. He found a couples therapist with a reputation for hating euphemism. We went. She had a soft rug and the stare of someone who would not let us turn our disaster into a TED Talk. Say the smallest true thing, she said. Repeat. He said smallest. I liked being impressive without paying for it. I said smallest. I let our life be efficient because efficiency is how I avoid needing anything. He said next. She called me brave when I answered email at midnight. I said next. I called it dedication and resented you alone. The therapist nodded as if we'd delivered the lab sample on time. Now we can work, she said, which is therapist for you've admitted the bacteria exists. There was a week in July where I thought I would leave. I went to see an apartment 2 suburbs over with windows that face a wall and light that made even dust look aspirational. I stood in the empty kitchen and put my hand on the counter and tried to imagine my tea mug sitting there like a claim. I could imagine it too well. I took a photo. I sat in the car outside and texted Asha the address. She replied, you can. You don't have to. You're not a coward for either choice. He told his parents. He told them more gently than I would have. His mother cried for me and for herself and for him, but mostly for the version of our wedding album that now had footnotes. His father sent me a message the next day that said, if he were our daughter, I would tell her she was not allowed to leave until she had tried to do the hard work, and I wrote back, I am not your daughter, and then I added, I am doing the hard work anyway. He called me that evening and apologized in a voice that made me forgive him for everything except the future. Katerina wrote once after the do not contact me. She sent a single sentence without salutation. I didn't ask you to promise me anything. The promises you made elsewhere are not my jurisdiction. I didn't reply. I read it 3 times and put my phone in the freezer for an hour because I am dramatic in ways the world will never know. When I took it out, Asha messaged, put it in a pot of rice next time, weirdo. We built small rituals not because Instagram told us to but because grief needs somewhere to put its hands. Sunday night calendars where we plan 3 us things, 2 me things each, 1 them thing, parents, friends, obligations we pretend not to resent. Phone basket at 9 p.m. like teenagers who got caught. Questions no one is allowed to answer with fine. What made you feel like a person today? Where did you want to run? What felt expensive? He brings me his mess earlier now when it's still domestic, not cinematic. I had the urge to write to her, he said once hoarse, and I handed him a bowl and said, put the urge in here. Let it sit. We watched it. It didn't evaporate. It quieted. Sometimes that's all you get. I am not a saint. Some nights I still scroll the old thread in my head and pretend I'm looking for punctuation errors. Some afternoons the word saudade shows up in my mouth like a seed and I hate that she taught him a word I now have to carry. I learned 3 Portuguese words of my own, basta enough, aqui here, escola choose. They make a sentence if I'm brave enough. I say it to the mirror. Basta. Estu aqui. Eu escolo. He booked a trip to Lisbon for work 2 months after the do not contact and I laughed out loud like a villain. No, I said. You're not going. He argued for a second and then stopped because even he could see the hole in his own boat. He sent someone else. He chose our boredom over their story. He came home the same person who left. That should not be a miracle, but Rita, it was. I met Katerina once, but not on purpose. I was in the international aisle at the supermarket, hunting for a particular kind of olive that tastes like regret but less dramatic, when I saw her at the end of the aisle, mouth open like she'd walked into a glass door. I recognized her from a single photo where she'd been nothing but a shadow on a tram window, which is a trick of the brain I'd explain with neurology if this were work. She looked smaller and older and exactly herself all at once. We stood there like 2 actresses in the wrong play. I'm not going to say anything, she said. That would be about me. I nodded. Likewise, I said. We both smiled in a way that could have been mistaken for kindness from the right angle. Then we held our carts like identities and walked away. Do I forgive him? Some mornings I do the whole way through breakfast. Some afternoons I decide forgiveness is a long low-grade fever I know how to work with. Some nights I look at him and inventory everything I liked before the airport stamps and the emails, and I find the list still embarrassingly long, and I hate that relief feels like disloyalty to the version of me who held the passport and laughed like a stranger. We are not even. We are not done. We are both stubborn in ways that sometimes line up like teeth. If you're reading because you found a stamp in a place it didn't belong and your heart is teaching you its loudest language, here's the only protocol that has felt like medicine instead of theater. Pick daylight for your first hard conversation, write your questions in the order that will keep you standing, get a witness who loves you more than they love vengeance, ask for verbs not stories, insist on endings you can screenshot and beginnings you can put on the calendar. Don't let "it was just once" be the lullaby that rocks you. Once is a frequency when the room is secret. Last week, I went back to that almost apartment with the ugly wall and the stubborn light. The agent remembered me and said, "You again," and I said, "Me again," and I stood in the empty kitchen and pictured my mug and pictured his hoodie and pictured the basil plant deciding whose window to lean toward. I didn't sign a lease. I told the apartment thank you like it was a person, which I realize is a lot. I bought myself the ugliest lamp from a thrift shop on the way home, a ceramic thing shaped like a fish that makes our living room look like an aunt decorated it, and I love it because it is ridiculous and mine. Tonight we're going to eat late and unreasonably. He'll try to chop onions too fast to be wise, and I'll slide the knife from his hand and show him the slow way because steadiness is a technique before it's a personality. He'll tell me about a bug fix that made the whole sprint behave, and I'll tell him about a little boy who brought me a sticker after I explained his inhaler, and we'll hold those stories up like lanterns. He'll put his phone in the basket without me asking. I'll take the basket and put it in the pantry and close the door like a joke we both deserve. We will go to bed. If I wake at 3 because my body still loves that hour for inventory, I will lie still and listen to the sound of him breathing beside me, ordinary, unsentimental, unpaid. If I can't sleep, I will go to the window and look at the slice of city that belongs to me without permission, and I will choose again what we are doing, which is not forgetting and not punishing. It is practicing being the kind of people who can say the smallest true thing before the biggest lie needs a passport. And if you need a number because you are like me and numbers anchor you, here I am on day 87 of not looking at her Instagram. I am on day 63 of him going to therapy twice a week and not turning the car around. I am on day 19 of liking him without thinking about airports. Some days I reset the count. Some days I throw the counter out the window. Most days I make tea, I answer questions about side effects, I label bottles, I hand strangers instructions and mean them, and I come home to a man who is trying in a basil plant that keeps choosing light whether or not we remember to rotate it, and I decide that for one more day I can live in this room with the windows open and the map on the table and the pen uncapped, ready to draw the next right line.